January 1966, a freezing night in Osnabrück, Germany. Snow fell softly over the cobbled streets until a gunshot split the silence. A taxi stood motionless by the roadside, its driver slumped over the wheel. Behind the weapon stood Leslie Grantham, a 19-year-old British soldier. Once a proud recruit of the Royal Fusiliers, Grantham had joined the army at 16, seeking purpose and escape from a troubled home life. But in that moment, all discipline and promise dissolved into panic. A single impulsive act, not out of greed or hatred, but desperation, rewrote the course of his life. Arrested hours later, calm and eerily composed, he claimed the gun had gone off by accident. But the bullet told another story. In April 1967, a German court found him guilty of murder. The judge's words were cold and deliberate. This was no accident. It was the foreseeable result of violence. Sentenced to life imprisonment, Grantham was transferred to a British prison where confinement forced him to confront what he had done. There, in the stark silence of routine and regret, he discovered acting. A prison theater group became his salvation. He was alive only when he was acting, one officer recalled. It was the only time he seemed free. Paroled in 1977, he emerged quieter, burdened by years of introspection. 8 years later, the world knew his face as Dirty Den Watts in EastEnders, the charming, dangerous landlord who captivated millions. The irony wasn't lost on those who knew his past. An actor who had once taken a life now breathed life into one of TV's most notorious characters. Some forgave, others never forgot. "He's paid for his crime," said producer Julia Smith. "Everyone deserves a second chance." Yet Grantham himself rarely spoke of the killing. "That's between me and my God," he said once, eyes distant. Until his death from lung cancer in 2018, his life embodied contradiction, guilt and fame, punishment and redemption. A BBC critic captured it best. "Every time Den Watts smirked, you saw both charm and danger, because Leslie Grantham had lived them both." Liverpool, 2011. Once beloved as Terry Sullivan in Brookside, Brian Regan had become a ghost of his former self, addicted, indebted, and desperate. His acting career had faded years earlier, leaving him drifting through nightclub circles and cocaine binges. On the night of February 24, 2011, Regan agreed to drive his acquaintance Edward Heffy on what he thought was a simple errand. In truth, it was a murder plot. Outside Liverpool's Belgrave pub, Heffy shot nightclub doorman Beeman Faraji in the face with a sawn-off shotgun. Regan, high on cocaine, sped away as the getaway driver. When police tracked him down within hours, he appeared detached and confused. He admitted driving Heffy but denied knowing of the plan. "I thought it was just a deal," he muttered during interrogation. At his 2012 trial, the courtroom watched an ashen, trembling man, a far cry from the confident actor he once was. The jury acquitted him of murder, but convicted him of perverting the course of justice for lying and destroying evidence. He was sentenced to 4 years and 10 months. "You didn't pull the trigger," the judge told him, "but you helped hide the truth." In prison, Regan was subdued, haunted by what his choices had made him. To some fellow inmates, he was still the bloke off Brookside. To himself, he was just another cautionary tale, proof that fame and addiction make a fatal mix. Essex, 2020. Paul Des Ballard had once been the grinning, energetic children's presenter who brought joy to Saturday mornings on Dig It and SMTV Live. But by 2020, he was a man ravaged by cocaine and self-destruction. On February 20th, under the influence of cocaine and cannabis, he tore through Romford streets at over 100 miles per hour. His toddler son sat strapped beside him. At a red light, Ballard didn't even tap the brakes. His Volkswagen Golf slammed into another car with horrifying force, killing Eileen Haskell, 64, and Richard Trice, 48, instantly. Toxicology tests later showed cocaine levels 3 times the legal limit. Ballard claimed he'd had a seizure, but experts refuted it. "You were in full control," one said. While awaiting trial, Ballard's decline spiraled further. He raped a woman in a hotel room, telling her coldly, "Your life ends tonight." Convicted in 2021, he received 19 years, 9 for the crash, 10 for the rape. Judge Anthony Cross's voice echoed across the courtroom. You drove like a missile through a family. You betrayed your own humanity. The smiling presenter who once embodied innocence had become a symbol of reckless ruin. Addiction, hidden for years behind his cheerful facade, had obliterated every trace of empathy and restraint. London, 2025. In the digital age of filters and false promises, Philip Foster, a former Brookside actor, turned deceit into an empire. Over 8 years, he built a £13.6 million modeling scam that preyed on dreams of fame. Young women were told they had the look. They were pressured into paying thousands for fake portfolios, photo shoots, and contracts that led nowhere. Recruiters were trained to apply psychological pressure. "Don't let them leave without paying," read one company memo. Behind the glossy brochures and modern offices lay a network of shell companies and offshore accounts stretching across Europe. When investigators finally traced the money, Foster was already living lavishly in Marbella, posting motivational quotes online. He was tried in absentia and sentenced to 8.5 years for fraud. "You preyed on trust," the judge declared. "You built an empire on exploitation." For his victims, the loss was more than financial. It was emotional. "He didn't steal cash," one mother said. "He stole hope." Foster's story revealed a new kind of crime, one born from the illusion of fame itself. Newcastle, 2024. Jason Hoganson had once been a promising young actor in the 1987 film Empire State. But decades later, he had 109 convictions: assaults, thefts, drug offenses. Addiction had hollowed him out, leaving only cycles of violence and release. After attacking his ex-partner, Rachel Usher, Hoganson was sentenced to 18 months. But in 2024, a government error released 37 inmates early, including him. Cameras captured him smirking as he walked out. Within 24 hours, he assaulted Rachel again. He was arrested, tried, and convicted. Yet before sentencing, Rachel died unexpectedly. With her gone, her testimony was ruled inadmissible. On appeal, his conviction was overturned. Hoganson walked free again, technically innocent, but morally stained forever. His photograph outside prison, grinning defiant, sparked national outrage. His daughter told reporters, "He doesn't know how to be free." He had become the embodiment of a system that punishes and releases without reforming, a man broken not by cruelty, but by endless decay. Freedom for Hoganson was just the pause between prisons. London, 2011. The riots that tore through the city were chaos incarnate. Sirens, smoke, and glass raining down on darkened streets. Among the looters, CCTV captured a familiar face: Jamie Waylett, once known to millions as Vincent Crabbe in Harry Potter. Fame had come too early. At 11, Waylett was thrust into global stardom. At 19, it was gone. His career destroyed after police found cannabis plants growing in his home. During the riots, he was filmed carrying a stolen bottle of champagne and a Molotov cocktail. Though he never used it, the image of a former Hogwarts bully among real-life rioters stunned fans worldwide. Convicted of violent disorder and handling stolen goods, Waylett received 2 years in prison. "He's not evil," his lawyer said. "He's lost." After release, he tried to rebuild quietly, even experimenting with music under the name Bully. But the industry had moved on. Fame had given him everything and then taken it all away. London, 2009. Boy George was once the face of 1980s pop, a voice that bridged androgyny and emotion, defiance and soul. But behind the vibrant image was a man consumed by addiction and paranoia. In 2007, he met Norwegian escort Audun Carlson online. Convinced Carlson had hacked his computer, George invited him to his flat. What followed was violence. Carlson was handcuffed to a wall and beaten before managing to escape into the street, bleeding and terrified. At trial, the defense claimed it was consensual. The jury disagreed. Convicted of assault and false imprisonment, George was sentenced to 15 months in prison. "I wasn't proud of myself," he said later. "I was angry and broken." He served 4 months before returning to music and stage work. He spoke openly about sobriety and regret. Yet the shadow of that night still lingered, a permanent mark on an otherwise brilliant legacy. You can rebuild your life, one interviewer told him. But you can't edit history. London, 2011. Barney Clark had been the wide-eyed child star of Roman Polanski's Oliver Twist, praised for his depth and innocence. But by 18, he was adrift, lost in London's underground party scene. One night at an illegal North London rave, police tried to disperse the crowd. Bottles flew. Clark, caught up in the chaos, hurled one too. CCTV captured it all. Arrested and charged with violent disorder, he was sentenced to 14 months. He didn't look angry, a reporter wrote. He looked lost. After prison, he vanished from the public eye. Rumors said he worked quietly in a shop, avoiding attention. His story, once filled with promise, faded into silence. A quiet tragedy of a boy who played innocence, but couldn't keep hold of it. From Leslie Grantham's fatal mistake to Boy George's violent obsession, from Brian Regan's descent into addiction to Philip Foster's empire of deceit, every story here reveals the same truth. Fame never protects anyone from consequence. Behind the glamour, applause, and illusion of success lies a darker reality. That desperation, ego, and addiction can unravel even the most celebrated lives. Some found redemption, others never escaped their own past. Each of these names once drew crowds. Later, they faced juries. The cameras that once adored them became the same lenses through which their downfall was watched by millions. They remind us that celebrity does not erase humanity. It magnifies its flaws. It shows that beneath the lights and headlines are fragile people capable of the same ruin as anyone else. When the spotlight fades, only the truth remains. And for some, that truth is unbearable. This is UK Real Crime, where Britain's most familiar faces reveal their darkest truths. Because when fame fades, the past never truly stays buried.